The fabric of space itself screamed. Lieutenant Commander Data's fingers flew across his console on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D, golden eyes reflecting cascading sensor alerts that shouldn't exist. "Captain, I am detecting a subspace rupture at bearing 271 Mark V. The energy signature is inconsistent with any known phenomenon in our database." Captain Jean-Luc Picard rose from his command chair, tugging his uniform tunic into place with practiced ease. On screen, the view screen shimmered, revealing a sight that made even the android pause. A column of prismatic light carved through the darkness of space like a cosmic blade, rotation creating spiral patterns that hurt to perceive directly. Colors that had no name in any Federation language twisted through the phenomenon, and at its heart, something impossibly solid tumbled through the void. "Magnify," Picard ordered. The image resolved into a figure, humanoid, caped, spinning unconscious through vacuum. In one hand, the being clutched a hammer that crackled with electrical discharge even in the airless dark. Blonde hair whipped around a bearded face, and armor that looked simultaneously ancient and impossibly advanced caught the light of distant stars. "Life signs." Picard's question came sharp. Dr. Beverly Crusher's medical station lit up. "Impossible readings, Jean-Luc. His cellular structure is generating its own energy. He should be dead from explosive decompression, but he's perfectly fine. Just unconscious." "The spatial rift is collapsing," Data reported. "The phenomenon appears to have been a temporary bridge between our universe and I cannot determine the origin point. The quantum signature suggests dimensional rather than spatial displacement." Commander William Riker stepped forward, beard catching the bridge lighting. "Dimensional? As in, he's not from our reality?" "That would be the most logical conclusion, Commander." Picard made his decision instantly. "Transporter room, lock on to those coordinates and beam him directly to sickbay. Security team to medical. Counselor Troy, I'll need your assessment the moment he regains consciousness." The prismatic column collapsed into nothing, leaving only the vacuum of space and the fading signatures of energy that Federation science had no framework to explain. On the view screen, the figure dissolved in the familiar sparkle of the transporter beam. Deanna Troy's dark eyes were distant, her empathic senses reaching toward the unconscious being materializing in sickbay. "Captain, I'm sensing something I've never felt before. It's like standing near a star. There's power there, yes, but also nobility, purpose, and underneath it all, grief. Such profound grief." In sickbay, the figure materialized on the biobed with a weight that made the deck plating groan. Emergency force fields engaged automatically as medical scanners attempted to catalog what they were seeing. The hammer, impossibly dense, covered in runic inscriptions that seemed to shift when observed peripherally, remained clutched in his hand even in unconsciousness. Beverly Crusher approached cautiously, tricorder extended. "My God, his bone density is off the charts, muscle structure unlike anything in Federation medical databases, and he's generating a bioelectric field that's interfering with our instruments." The being's eyes snapped open, brilliant blue, crackling with barely contained lightning. He sat up with warrior's reflexes, hammer raised, scanning his surroundings with millennia of combat experience, assessing threat levels in microseconds. His gaze locked onto the security officers with phaser rifles, the strange medical equipment, the unfamiliar ship architecture. "Where am I?" His voice carried the weight of thunder, accent strange but understandable through the universal translator. "What realm is this? Where is the Bifrost?" Beverly raised her hands in a calming gesture. "You're safe. You're aboard the Federation Starship Enterprise. I'm Dr. Beverly Crusher. You were floating in space. We rescued you." The warrior's grip on his hammer tightened, lightning dancing along its surface. His free hand went to his chest, fingers splaying across armor that bore signs of catastrophic battle damage. The dark entity, the rift. I was pursuing it through the Bifrost when... His eyes widened with sudden, terrible understanding. No, I've been cast through dimensions. This is not the 9 realms. 9 realms? Beverly's medical curiosity warred with caution. I don't understand. The warrior stood, his full height impressive, even by the standards of species across the Federation. He looked down at the hammer in his hand, then back at the doctor with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin, protector of Midgard and prince of Asgard, and I am very far from home. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The doors to sickbay hissed open as Captain Picard strode in, flanked by Riker and Data. The 3 officers stopped at the threshold, taking in the scene. The massive warrior standing at the center of the medical bay, weapon radiating power that made their comm badges crackle with interference. Picard's diplomatic training took over instantly. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets. On behalf of the Federation, I welcome you aboard the Enterprise, Thor Odinson. He paused, measuring his next words carefully. You mentioned you're a prince. We extend all courtesies due to a visiting dignitary, though I confess your arrival was unconventional. Thor's posture shifted slightly, recognizing another leader when he saw one. The lightning around Mjolnir faded. Captain Picard, your courtesy is noted and appreciated, but I must know. What star system is this? What galaxy? Data consulted his tricorder. We are in the Alpha Quadrant of the Milky Way galaxy, approximately 47 light-years from Earth. Given your reference to Midgard, which our historical databases indicate is an ancient Norse term for Earth, I hypothesize you are from an alternate dimensional iteration of our own universe. Thor's jaw tightened. An alternate dimension. By Yggdrasil. He turned away, free hand clenching into a fist. The Bifrost was damaged in the battle. When the rift opened, it must have pulled me through dimensional barriers instead of spatial ones. The Rainbow Bridge. He looked at his hammer with something approaching despair. Cannot reach across realities. Counselor Troy stepped forward, her empathic senses reading the profound loss radiating from this being. You can't go home. Not without finding another way to bridge the dimensional gap. Thor met her eyes and she saw the weight of immortal loneliness there. I have been separated from my people before, Counselor, but never like this. Never across the very fabric of reality itself. The Enterprise's observation lounge had hosted first contact scenarios with dozens of species across hundreds of worlds, but Captain Picard suspected none quite like this. Thor Odinson sat across the conference table, Mjolnir resting on the polished surface with a weight that made the structural supports groan audibly. The hammer's inscriptions caught the starlight streaming through the windows, seeming to pulse with their own inner luminescence. Around the table sat the senior staff, Riker, Data, Troy, Worf, LaForge, and Dr. Crusher. Each had spent the past hour reviewing sensor logs, medical scans, and historical databases, trying to reconcile what their instruments told them with what sat before them. Let me ensure I understand correctly, Picard began, fingers steepled. You claim to be the Norse god Thor, the Thor of Earth mythology. I make no claim, Captain. I simply am. Thor's voice carried no arrogance, merely statement of fact. Though I suspect in your reality, Asgard never made contact with Midgard, your Earth. In mine, we visited your ancestors centuries ago. They called us gods, though we are merely longer lived, more advanced. Geordi LaForge's visor swept across the visible spectrum, analyzing Thor with every sensor available to his cybernetic vision. "Captain, the energy readings coming off him and that hammer are like nothing in our database. We're talking about power generation that exceeds a Type 2 civilization output, contained in organic tissue and whatever alloy that weapon is made from." "It is Uru metal," Thor offered, placing a hand on Mjolnir's handle. "Forged in the heart of a dying star, enchanted by my father with spells that allow only those deemed worthy to wield it. The hammer was a gift and a test of character." Data's head tilted with android curiosity. "Enchantments? Spells? Thor, our scientific understanding does not account for magic as a functional force in the universe. What you describe as magic, we would classify as sufficiently advanced technology indistinguishable from—" "Arthur C. Clarke's third law," Thor interrupted with a slight smile. "Yes, I am familiar with the concept. One of Midgard's, your Earth's, finest minds in my reality proposed something similar. But tell me, Data, and forgive me, but your name suggests artificial intelligence. Can your science explain consciousness? True self-awareness?" The android paused. The question of consciousness remains among the great philosophical mysteries, even in our time. "Then, perhaps," Thor said gently, "there is room in your philosophy for forces your instruments cannot yet measure. I do not claim to be a deity in the cosmic sense. I am Asgardian, a being of flesh and energy, born of parents, capable of death. But the power I wield," lightning crackled along his fingertips for emphasis, "is no less real for your inability to categorize it." Worf, who had been silent until now, leaned forward with visible intensity. The Klingon security chief's warrior instincts had been aroused from the moment Thor materialized. "Your combat capabilities. Dr. Crusher's scans indicate bone density 15 times human standard, muscle efficiency beyond any known species. You survived unprotected space exposure. How would you compare your strength to, say, a Klingon warrior?" Thor's expression softened with something approaching kinship. "Klingon? I am not familiar with your species, Worf, but I sense a warrior spirit in you. As for strength—" He reached out and grasped Mjolnir's handle, lifting the hammer one-handed with casual ease. "In my reality, I have fought alongside the strongest beings across multiple realms. I have battled frost giants who could crush starships, stood against cosmic entities that devour worlds. I do not boast. I merely state what 1,500 years of combat have taught me." The number hit the room like a photon torpedo. 1,500 years, Beverly Crusher's medical mind reeled. "You're over a millennium old." "By Asgardian standards, I am in my prime, Doctor. My father Odin ruled for over 5,000 years before passing the throne to me." Thor's expression darkened. "Or he would have in time. Now I may never know what becomes of my realm." Deanna Troy's empathic senses had been working overtime throughout the meeting. "Captain, I'm sensing no deception from Thor. Whatever else he is, he believes absolutely everything he's telling us. The grief over his separation from home is genuine and profound." Picard nodded slowly. The Prime Directive, Starfleet's most sacred law, prohibiting interference in the natural development of alien cultures, had never contemplated a scenario quite like this. Thor wasn't a pre-warp civilization to be protected from cultural contamination. He was, by any measure, more advanced than the Federation in ways their science couldn't even classify. "Thor," Picard said carefully, "the Federation operates under a principle called the Prime Directive. We do not interfere in the internal affairs of other civilizations, and we approach first contact scenarios with extreme caution. Your presence here presents unique challenges. You possess capabilities that could destabilize political situations, shift balances of power. We need to understand your intentions." The Asgardian prince met the captain's gaze with millennia of leadership experience. "Captain Picard, I understand your concern. I have no desire to interfere in your affairs. My only wish is to find a way home to my people, to my realm. Until that time," he stood hammer in hand, cutting an impressive figure against the starfield beyond the windows. "I ask for sanctuary and the opportunity to study your science. Perhaps together your technology and my knowledge of dimensional travel through the Bifrost might find a solution." "A reasonable request," Picard acknowledged. "However, I must inform you that the Enterprise is not a civilian vessel. We are on an exploratory mission in this sector, investigating reports of spatial anomalies. Keeping you aboard may expose you to danger." Thor's laugh rolled like distant thunder. "Captain, I have stormed the gates of Jotunheim, battled my way through Muspelheim's fire demons, and stood against the darkness of Svartalfheim. I am not unaccustomed to danger." Riker exchanged a glance with Worf. The security chief's expression showed grudging respect. "Very well," Picard decided. "You may remain aboard as our guest. However, I must ask that you submit to certain protocols. Your weapon cannot be worn openly on the ship. It makes the crew nervous. And we'll need to establish some ground rules about the use of your abilities." Thor considered this, then set Mjolnir on the table with a resonant thud. "The hammer stays with me, Captain. It is bound to me in ways your science cannot measure, but I will keep it sheathed, metaphorically speaking, unless threat requires otherwise. As for my lightning..." He closed his fist and the crackling energy vanished. "I am not without discipline." Data raised a finger. "Captain, if I may suggest, Thor's knowledge of dimensional physics, even if described in non-scientific terms, could prove invaluable to our mission. The spatial anomalies we are investigating show quantum signatures similar to the rift through which he arrived." The implications crystallized instantly. Picard's expression sharpened. "You think his arrival and our mission objectives are connected?" "The probability seems significant, sir." Thor straightened, warrior instincts recognizing purpose when it presented itself. "These anomalies? Describe them." Geordi pulled up holographic displays showing sensor telemetry. "Over the past 3 weeks, we've detected 17 localized subspace ruptures in this sector. Each one exhibits similar energy signatures, prismatic radiation across spectrums that shouldn't exist, quantum flux that violates conservation laws. They appear, last approximately 4.3 minutes, then collapse. We've been trying to predict where the next one will appear." Thor studied the data with eyes that had seen the pathways between worlds. "Captain, these are not random anomalies. Something is creating bridges between dimensions. Something is punching holes in reality itself." His expression grew grim. "In my experience, such phenomena do not occur naturally. They are weapons or passages. Either way, something is trying to get through." The next crisis arrived 3 hours later. Red alert klaxons shattered the Enterprise's normal hum of operations, sending crew members racing to battle stations with practiced precision. On the bridge, Picard's voice cut through the controlled chaos. "Report. Captain, sensors are detecting a Romulan warbird decloaking at bearing 147 Mark II. Lieutenant Worf's hands flew across tactical controls. "They are charging weapons." "Hail them," Picard commanded, mind already cycling through diplomatic protocols. The Romulan Star Empire, treacherous and militaristic, represented one of the Federation's most dangerous adversaries. Every encounter walked a knife's edge between peace and war. The view screen flickered, revealing the sharp features of a Romulan commander, her expression cold calculation behind ceremonial shoulder armor. "Captain Picard, how convenient to find the flagship of Starfleet so far from Federation space. We detected unusual energy signatures and came to investigate. Imagine our surprise to find you here first." "Commander Seatle," Picard replied with diplomatic formality. "We are on a scientific mission in unclaimed space, well within our rights under existing treaties. I assure you, sensors indicate you are harboring an unusual energy source aboard your vessel," Seatle interrupted, eyes narrowing. "Something that generates power signatures beyond anything in known Federation technology. You will surrender this technology, or we will take it by force." Before Picard could respond, the turbolift doors hissed open. Thor strode onto the bridge, Mjolnir in hand, and every head turned. He'd spent the past hours in guest quarters, but the red alert had drawn him like a lodestone draws iron. "Captain, what is the nature of this threat?" Thor's question carried the absolute confidence of someone who had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with sufficient application of lightning and will. Seatal's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise a Romulan commander would permit herself. "What is that?" "Thor, return to your quarters," Picard ordered sharply. "This is a delicate diplomatic situation." "Diplomacy with those who threaten your ship?" Thor moved to the view screen, studying the Romulan with a warrior's assessment. "In Asgard, such threats are answered with steel, not words. Commander Seatal, is it? I am Thor Odinson. If you wish to test your weapons against this vessel, know that I stand among its defenders." Picard felt the situation spiraling. "Thor, stand down. That is an order." "With respect, Captain, I am not one of your officers." Thor's tone remained courteous but immovable. "I am a guest, and where I come from, guests honor their hosts by defending their halls against enemies. This Romulan threatens your ship. That makes her my concern." On the view screen, Seatal's calculating expression had shifted to predatory interest. "Fascinating. Captain Picard appears to have acquired a new toy. One that doesn't follow orders. How very unlike the disciplined Starfleet we know." Her smile turned razor-sharp. "Perhaps we should test its capabilities. Fire." Disruptor beams lanced through space, emerald death racing toward the Enterprise's shields. The ship shuddered as the first impacts hit, console displays flickering. "Shields holding at 87%, Worf reported. "They are targeting our primary systems." "Return fire, photon torpedoes, surgical strikes only. Disable their weapons but avoid casualties." Picard's order reflected decades of command philosophy, violence as absolute last resort, measured when unavoidable. Thor watched the exchange with growing incomprehension. The Enterprise's torpedoes struck precisely, damaging the Warbird's disruptor arrays, but leaving the ship fundamentally intact. The Romulan vessel broke away, charging for another pass. "Captain, they are flanking us." Data's fingers danced across navigation. "Bringing another weapons array to bear." "Enough of this," Thor growled. He raised Mjolnir, and the bridge lights dimmed as power surged. "I will end this farce." "Thor, no," Picard began. Too late. Lightning erupted from the hammer in a column of pure electrical fury that tore through the Enterprise's shields without resistance, lancing across the void to strike the Romulan Warbird's hull. The beam bypassed the enemy ship's defensive systems entirely, foreign to their specifications, unmeasured by their sensors. It carved across the Warbird's portside hull in a controlled discharge that melted ablative armor and fused weapon systems without breaching the pressure hull. The Romulan ship tumbled out of attack posture, emergency lights flickering across its damaged sections. On the view screen, Seatal's bridge showed smoke and chaos. "Their weapons are completely offline," Worf reported with barely concealed astonishment. "Propulsion damaged but functional. Life support intact. They are retreating. Cloaking device engaging." The Warbird vanished from sensors, limping away into the darkness. Thor lowered Mjolnir, satisfied. There. Threat neutralized, enemy humbled but alive. In Asgard, we call this mercy, tempered with strength. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Picard stood slowly, his expression carefully controlled, but his voice carrying an edge that could cut diamonds. "Mr. Worf, secure from red alert. Commander Riker, you have the bridge." He turned to Thor. "You, my ready room. Now." Thor followed without protest, recognizing a leader's justified anger when he encountered it. The ready room doors closed behind them with a finality that spoke of serious consequences. Picard rounded on him immediately. "What you just did was reckless, dangerous, and a potential act of war. Do you have any concept of the political ramifications? The Romulans will report that the Federation has developed a weapon that bypasses all known defenses. This could destabilize the entire quadrant." "The Romulans attacked your vessel," Thor replied, genuinely confused by the captain's fury. "I defended it. Where is the complexity?" "The complexity," Picard said with barely restrained intensity, "is that we exist in a delicate balance of power with multiple species, any of whom could destroy us if they united against the Federation. We maintain peace through treaties, mutual understanding, and the careful application of force only when absolutely necessary. You just demonstrated a capability that makes every one of our enemies see us as an existential threat." Thor's brow furrowed. "Captain, I have fought in wars across 9 realms. I understand strategy and politics, but when an enemy attacks, you respond with strength. Anything less invites further aggression." "That may be true in your universe," Picard countered, his captain's composure cracking slightly. "But here, in this reality, we have built a civilization on principles that transcend simple might makes right philosophy. We negotiate, we explore alternatives, we use force as the absolute last resort, not the first response." The Asgardian prince studied Picard for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. "You face enemies who could destroy you, yet you chain your own strength with rules and protocols. To Asgardian thinking, this seems like madness. But you defend these principles as fiercely as I would defend my realm." He inclined his head slightly. "I may not understand your ways, Captain, but I recognize conviction when I see it. I have offended your honor by acting without permission aboard your ship. For that, I apologize." Picard's anger deflated marginally in the face of genuine contrition. He moved to his desk, pouring 2 glasses of saurian brandy with measured movements. "Thor, I don't doubt your intentions. You acted to protect my crew and ship. I appreciate that. But you must understand, your power is unlike anything in this galaxy. One person wielding such force, operating outside any chain of command or diplomatic framework, is precisely the kind of wild card that starts wars. Empires, federations, and alliances are built on predictability. You represent chaos." Thor accepted the offered glass, studying the amber liquid. "In Asgard, I am the prince, the heir, the protector. I have always been the solution to problems, not their cause. Here." He drank, tasting something foreign but not unpleasant. "Here, I am the problem that needs containing. It is a strange reversal." "Not containing," Picard corrected carefully. "Understanding, integrating. Thor, you possess remarkable capabilities, but you need to learn restraint in their application. Our way is not weakness, it is discipline of a different kind." "The discipline of the diplomat over the warrior," Thor mused. "My brother Loki would appreciate the irony. He always said I was too quick to reach for Mjolnir when words might suffice." Pain flickered across his face. "I wonder if I will ever see him again." The moment of vulnerability humanized the godlike being. Picard's expression softened. "We will help you find a way home, Thor. I give you my word. But while you're here, you need to trust my judgment on when force is appropriate. Can you do that?" Thor met his eyes, warrior to leader. "I will try, Captain Picard, but understand, if your ship faces true danger, if your crew stands at the brink, I will not hesitate. Some instincts run deeper than any universe's protocols." "I would expect nothing less," Picard acknowledged. "But promise me you'll exhaust other options first." "That I can promise." Word of the Asgardians' presence aboard the Enterprise spread through subspace channels like wildfire through a plasma conduit. Within 18 hours, encoded transmissions had reached every major power in the Alpha Quadrant. Within 36, the first response arrived, though not from any source Starfleet expected. Lieutenant Worf's tactical console erupted with proximity alerts. "Captain, Klingon bird of prey decloaking directly off our bow. They are hailing us." Picard exchanged a glance with Riker. The Klingon Empire, technically allied with the Federation, but perpetually testing those boundaries, represented a different kind of challenge than the calculating Romulans. Klingons respected strength, honored combat prowess, and viewed diplomacy as something between insult and incomprehensible alien behavior. On screen, the view screen resolved into a face that needed no introduction. Commander Kurn, younger brother of Worf and decorated officer in the Klingon Defense Force, glared from his command chair with barely contained intensity. Behind him, the bridge of his vessel pulsed with red lighting and the barely organized chaos that characterized Klingon ship operations. "Captain Picard," Kurn's voice carried the gravelly growl common to his species. "We have received most interesting intelligence. Reports claim you harbor a warrior aboard your vessel, one who wields lightning as a weapon and possesses strength beyond any known species. A warrior who single-handedly crippled a Romulan warbird." His smile showed too many teeth. "Naturally, we had to investigate such claims. We would meet this warrior, if he exists, if he is more than Federation propaganda." Picard felt the situation sliding into familiar but treacherous territory. "Commander Kurn, Thor Odinson is our guest, not a spectacle for display. He is standing right here," Thor's voice announced from the turbolift. The Asgardian strode onto the bridge, Mjolnir slung across his back in a leather harness, looking like he'd stepped from ancient Viking sagas. "Captain, forgive my interruption, but I heard this commander's words through the communication system in my quarters. He speaks of warriors and strength. These are languages I understand fluently." On the view screen, Kurn leaned forward with predatory interest. "So, the rumors are true. You are impressive to look upon, stranger, but Klingons do not bow to appearance. We honor deed and combat prowess. I am Kurn, son of Mog, commander of the IKS Heta, and I challenge you, Thor Odinson. Meet me on neutral ground, prove your strength matches your reputation, or be revealed as another soft Federation illusion." Thor's expression shifted into something approaching delight. Finally, someone speaking a language that transcended universal translators and cultural barriers. "Commander Kurn, in Asgard we have a saying, only the battle proves the warrior. I accept your challenge gladly. Name the terms." "Thor," Picard began, but the Asgardian raised a hand. "Captain, with respect, this is a matter of honor. If I refuse, these Klingons will see it as weakness. Weakness invites aggression, but if I meet their challenge honestly, warrior to warrior, perhaps we build respect instead of enmity." Thor turned back to the view screen. "I propose this, single combat to submission or first blood on the planet below. No weapons beyond what we carry. No interference from our respective vessels. Purely strength against strength, skill against skill. Kern's eyes gleamed. Terms accepted. The southern continent has suitable terrain, open ground, solid rock. We transport down in 1 hour. Prepare yourself, Thor Odinson. Klingons do not fight as you soft humans do. We fight to test limits, to touch the edge of death. I hope you are as formidable as the reports suggest. Disappointment would be unfortunate. The channel closed. Riker rounded on Thor immediately. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Klingons don't pull their punches. They fight with everything they have. People die in these challenges. Then it is fortunate I am not easy to kill, Thor replied calmly. Commander Riker, I appreciate your concern, but I have faced frost giants twice my size, battled legendary warriors across multiple realms, and stood against cosmic entities. One Klingon warrior, however formidable, does not concern me unduly. Worf spoke up, his voice carrying weight of personal experience. Commander Kern is my brother, Thor. I know his capabilities intimately. He has won 73 personal combats, killed 4 challengers to his command, and earned 3 commendations for battlefield valor. He is not one Klingon warrior. He is among the finest the Empire has produced. Thor's smile widened. Then this will be a worthy contest indeed. Come, this will be glorious. The planet's southern continent offered exactly what Kern had promised. Flat obsidian plain, stretching to distant mountains, surface hardened by ancient volcanic activity into natural arena. The Enterprise's transporter deposited Thor, Picard, Data, and Worf at coordinates 1 kilometer from where the Klingon vessel had beamed down their own contingent. Kern stood at the center of the designated combat zone, stripped to battle armor that left his muscled arms bare. Behind him, a dozen Klingon warriors formed honor guard, batleths held at ready position. The wind whipping across the plain caught their armor, making them look like ancient demons awaiting judgment. Thor strode forward, Mjolnir held loosely in one hand, red cape snapping behind him. The 2 warriors stopped 10 meters apart, sizing each other up with the instant assessment that came from lifetimes of combat. You came, Kern observed. Good. I would have been disappointed otherwise. Are you ready to begin, Asgardian? I was born ready, Klingon. But first, a question. Your culture values honor and combat. What are the exact rules of engagement? I would not win. Through technicality or misunderstanding. That would cheapen the victory for us both. Kern's expression shifted to something approaching respect. Wise words. The rules. We fight until one submits, falls unconscious, or can no longer continue. Killing is not required, though death is acceptable if it occurs honestly. No outside interference, no weapons beyond what we each carry. For me, my blade. For you, your hammer. He drew a mek'leth, the shorter Klingon blade, rather than the more common batleth, meant for close quarters brutality. These terms acceptable? Completely. Thor rolled his shoulders, lightning beginning to dance along his arms. Shall we begin? Kern's answer was to charge. The Klingon moved with shocking speed for someone his size, closing the distance in seconds, blade arcing toward Thor's midsection in a strike designed to disembowel. Thor brought Mjolnir up in a defensive block that rang like a cosmic bell, the impact sending shockwaves across the obsidian plain. Kern flowed into a follow-up strike without pause, blade whirling through attack patterns refined over centuries of Klingon martial tradition. Thor gave ground, studying his opponent's style with interest. The Klingon fought with aggressive fury, yes, but underneath lay cold tactical calculation, feints disguised as wild swings, positioning that maximized leverage. This was no berserker. This was a master warrior who used fury as tool rather than weakness. You are skilled, Thor acknowledged, blocking another combination. "Your blade work rivals the finest warriors of Vanaheim." "And you are defensive," Kern snarled. "Fight back, Asgardian, or do you fear to match Klingon strength?" Thor's eyes flashed. "As you wish." He surged forward, Mjolnir swinging in an overhead arc that would have pulverized stone. Kern rolled aside, the hammer's impact cratering the ground where he'd stood microseconds before. The Klingon came up slashing, blade catching Thor across the cheek, first blood, drawing dark red that glowed faintly with bioelectric energy. "Ha!" Kern roared triumph. "You bleed! You can be hurt!" "Oh, now you've done it," Thor muttered. Lightning erupted across his body, raw power surging. He moved faster now, godlike speed and strength, no longer restrained by caution. Mjolnir became blur of motion, each strike forcing Kern back, each block sending the Klingon skidding across obsidian. But Kern didn't yield. His own battle rage rose to meet Thor's power, the legendary Klingon fury that had conquered 100 worlds. He roared defiance, blade moving in patterns that defied human perception, turning Thor's overwhelming force aside through perfect technique and unbreakable will. They fought for 20 minutes that felt like seconds and hours simultaneously. Thor's lightning scarred the ground. Kern's blade opened wounds that healed almost as fast as they appeared. The watching contingents from both ships stood transfixed. "Incredible," Data murmured, recording every moment. Thor is holding back considerably. His displayed power against the Romulans far exceeded this output, yet Kern is matching him through pure skill and determination. Finally, Thor caught Kern's blade between Mjolnir's head and handle, twisted, and sent the weapon flying. In the same motion, he swept the Klingon's legs and brought his hammer down, stopping millimeters from Kern's throat, crackling with barely restrained lightning. "Yield," Thor said, not unkindly. "You have fought with honor that would be celebrated in any of the 9 realms. There is no shame in this outcome." Kern looked up at the hammer poised to end him, then at Thor's face, and began to laugh. Deep, genuine Klingon laughter that rolled across the plain like thunder. "No shame. There is glory. I have fought a being of legend and survived. You are everything the reports claimed, Thor Odinson. More, even. I yield, but only because you have earned the right to victory." Thor extended his hand, pulling the Klingon to his feet with easy strength. "You are a magnificent warrior, Kern. In Asgard's halls, your name would be sung in honor songs." Kern clasped Thor's forearm in warrior's grip. "And in the halls of Stovokor, the Klingon afterlife, your deeds will echo. You have made me understand something, Asgardian." He gestured to his honor guard, to the obsidian plain, to the ships watching from orbit. "Power is common in the universe. Technology can be stolen, weapons built. But a warrior's heart, that is rare, that is precious. You possess such a heart." The Klingon commander turned to Picard. "Captain, I came here to test your guest, to prove him fraud or discover truth. I have found truth. More than that, I have found worthy ally. The House of Moog extends welcome to Thor Odinson. If he stands with the Federation, then the Federation has gained strength beyond measure." Worf stepped forward, pride evident in his bearing. "Brother, your words honor both our house and our allies." "They are deserved." Kern looked back at Thor. "If ever you seek combat more challenging, Asgardian, the Klingon Empire has enemies aplenty. We would welcome such a warrior in our battles." "And I would welcome such fights," Thor replied warmly, "though I suspect Captain Picard has other plans for my time." Picard allowed himself a slight smile. "Indeed, though I confess, Thor, you handled that with more wisdom than I anticipated. Building respect through strength rather than alienating potential allies. Perhaps you understand diplomacy better than you claim. Diplomacy, Thor mused. Is that what we call it when warriors beat respect into each other? If so, then I am a better diplomat than I knew. The phenomenon appeared without warning 3 days later, just as Data had been calculating probability matrices for the next spatial anomaly. One moment, space held its normal configuration. The next, reality folded inside out. "Captain," Data's voice carried uncharacteristic urgency. Subspace rupture forming directly ahead. Energy signature matches Thor's arrival pattern, but exponentially larger. It is... The view screen filled with impossible geometry. A rift 200 kilometers across tore through space-time like cosmic wound, bleeding colors that hurt to perceive. The Enterprise's sensors screamed contradictory data, mass readings that violated conservation laws, energy outputs that shouldn't exist, quantum states that occupied multiple realities simultaneously. And through the maelstrom stepped something that made every instinct scream danger. He appeared human at first glance, dressed in archaic Earth fashion, three-piece suit from centuries past, with an amused smile that promised chaos. But his eyes held infinity, and reality bent around him like supplicant bowing to Emperor. "Q," Picard breathed, recognition mixing with dread. The being materialized on the Enterprise's bridge in a flash of light that bypassed shields, transporters, and every security system as though they were polite suggestions. He spread his arms wide, grin maddening. "Jean-Luc, my favorite captain, and look at you, still boldly going where no one has gone before. How predictable." His gaze swept the bridge, landing on Thor with sudden electric interest. "But this is delightfully unpredictable. What have we here?" Thor had been in engineering with Geordi, studying the Enterprise's warp core to understand this universe's approach to dimensional physics. The sudden intrusion alert brought him racing to the bridge via turbolift, Mjolnir in hand. He arrived to find Picard standing rigid, Data's fingers frozen over his console, and Riker's hand hovering uselessly near his phaser. "Captain, what has happened to your crew?" Thor demanded, then noticed the stranger. "Who are you?" Q turned fully toward Thor, and for the first time in millennia, the omnipotent being looked genuinely surprised. "Fascinating. You're not from here, not from this universe at all. I know every being, every species, every quantum fluctuation in this reality, and you..." He circled Thor like predator assessing prey. "You're something wonderfully foreign. Asgardian, if I'm reading your dimensional signature correctly. Thor Odinson, god of thunder, lost far from home." His smile widened impossibly. "Oh, this is too delicious." "Release them," Thor growled, lightning crackling along his arms. "Whatever power you wield, being, know that I will not tolerate." Q snapped his fingers. The bridge crew gasped simultaneously as time resumed normal flow. Picard immediately stepped between Thor and the entity. "Q, what do you want? If this is another one of your tests, please, Jean-Luc. This transcends my usual curriculum." Q materialized a comfortable chair and lounged in it, floating 3 feet above the deck. I sensed something impossible breaking into my universe, dimensional barriers that even the Q continuum considers sacrosanct, violated. Naturally, I investigated and found him. He pointed at Thor. A genuine deity from an alternate reality, radiating power that shouldn't exist here. Tell me, Thunder God, how does it feel being utterly alone in a cosmos where gods are merely sufficiently advanced species? Thor's grip on Mjolnir tightened. "I am not alone. I have allies on this vessel. How touching, but inadequate for what's coming." Q's expression shifted, playfulness evaporating into something approaching seriousness. "You see, Thor Odinson, Your arrival didn't just punch one hole between dimensions, it weakened the barriers, made them permeable, and things far less friendly than you are noticing. He gestured toward the view screen, where the massive rift still churned. That's not random phenomenon, that's something pushing through from the spaces between realities. Something drawn by your dimensional signature like sharks to blood. Data's console erupted with warnings. Sir, I am detecting movement within the anomaly. Mass readings approaching. Captain, I am reading biomechanical signatures, thousands of them, and they match. The first cube emerged from the rift like nightmare birthed from cosmic womb. Black metal, impossibly geometric, bristling with weapons and technology that made Federation science look like stone tools. Green energy pulsed through its structure, and across its hull, windows revealed horrors. Beings assimilated into collective consciousness, individuality stripped away, transformed into drones serving singular purpose. Borg, Worf said, the single word carrying weight of entire civilizations destroyed. Q's expression turned grim, a sight so rare that Picard felt cold fear crystallize. Not just Borg, Jean-Luc. Borg from a reality where they've already assimilated everything. They've consumed their entire universe and are now branching into others. The dimensional barriers weakening gave them opportunity. They felt Thor's energy signature, power unlike anything in their databanks, and came seeking to add it to their collective. Thor studied the cube, warrior's instincts assessing threat. What are these Borg? Cybernetic organisms, Data explained rapidly. A collective intelligence that assimilates other species, adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. They are relentless, adaptive, and consider all other life forms potential additions to the collective. Their phrase, resistance is futile. Resistance, Thor said slowly, is never futile when one refuses to surrender. The cube's sensor swept across the Enterprise, then locked onto Thor specifically. When the Borg spoke, their voice came from millions of drones speaking in perfect unison, a sound that had broken the will of entire species. Asgardian biological and technological distinctiveness detected. Dimensional travel capabilities, energy manipulation, enhanced physiology. These will be added to our perfection. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. There's that phrase again, Thor muttered. He turned to Picard. Captain, I assume these Borg are hostile? They've destroyed entire civilizations, Picard replied, his voice carrying trauma of personal experience. I was once assimilated by them, made into their drone. It took everything Starfleet had to rescue me. Thor, that cube could destroy the Enterprise in minutes. We need to run. Run? Thor's expression showed genuine confusion. From one enemy vessel? Q laughed without humor. Oh, this will be educational. Thor, allow me to demonstrate why the Borg are feared across galaxies. He snapped his fingers and the view screen zoomed into the cube's structure. Thousands upon thousands of drones moved with mechanical precision, each one a person stolen, transformed, enslaved. Every individual you see was someone, had dreams, loved ones, hopes. Now they're extensions of collective will, and they want to do the same to you, to everyone on this ship. Still think running isn't wise? Thor's expression hardened. Then we destroy them before they destroy us. The Borg adapt, Riker interjected. Our weapons work once, maybe twice. Then they modify their shields and become immune. They learn from every attack, every defense. They are, without exaggeration, the most dangerous enemy in known space. The cube fired. Green energy beam lanced across the void, striking the Enterprise's shields with devastating force. The ship shuddered violently, systems screaming overload warnings. Shields at 43%, Worf reported. One shot reduced them by more than half. Q stood from his floating chair, the playfulness completely gone. Time for decisions, Jean-Luc. Run, fight, or watch your crew get assimilated, though I suspect our Asgardian friend has already made his choice. Thor raised Mjolnir, lightning coalescing around him in corona of raw power. In Asgard, we have faced extinction-level threats before. We have stared into the abyss of oblivion and emerged victorious through courage, strength, and unwillingness to yield. He met Picard's eyes. I understand you prefer diplomacy, Captain, but these Borg do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They are the enemy every warrior trains their entire life to face, implacable, overwhelming, absolute. And I am the Thor, son of Odin, wielder of Mjolnir, protector of the 9 realms. The lightning intensified until the bridge lights dimmed. If I cannot defend one ship against one enemy, then I am unworthy of my hammer. One enemy? Q's laugh carried edge of hysteria. Thor, dear boy, you magnificent idiot. That cube isn't alone. Check your sensors, Captain. Data's voice cut through the tension like knife. Additional contacts emerging from the rift. 2 cubes. 4, 8, 16. His android composure cracked slightly. Captain, I am reading 47 Borg cubes entering this universe, and the rift is expanding. The view screen showed cosmic horror, cubes filling space like locusts, each one capable of destroying planets, all converging on a single point. On Thor, on the Asgardian power they wish to dissect, analyze, and absorb into their terrible perfection. Picard's command training warred with survival instinct. Helm, set course away from the rift, maximum warp. We are leaving, now. Belay that order, Thor said quietly. Thor, Captain Picard, the Asgardian's voice carried absolute certainty. If we run, these Borg follow. They pursue me across your galaxy, endangering every world, every species they encounter. You said they assimilate civilizations. How many will die because I fled? He shook his head. No. I have been many things in 1500 years. Warrior, prince, protector, sometimes fool. But I have never been a coward who hides behind innocence while enemies pursue. If they want me... Lightning erupted from his body in blinding flash. Then let them come and take me. The Klingons arrived first. Kern's voice crackled across subspace before the IKS Hekta even fully materialized from warp. Enterprise. We detected multiple Borg signatures on long-range sensors. My brother Worf's ship surrounded by the greatest enemy of all free peoples. What Klingon would I be to ignore such glorious battle? The bird of prey dropped from warp directly between the Enterprise and the nearest cube, weapons hot and ready. Today is a good day to die, Thor Odinson. Let us show these soulless machines what warriors can achieve. Thor's expression lit with fierce joy. Now we are speaking my language. Kern, fall back, Picard ordered. One ship cannot win? Kern's laughter boomed. Perhaps not, but we can fight with honor. All Klingons know victory is not always survival. Sometimes victory is making the enemy pay for every centimeter they take. The Harta opened fire, disruptors and photon torpedoes hammering the lead cube. The Borg vessel's shields flared, absorbed the damage, then adapted within seconds. The cube's return fire caught the Klingon ship's port nacelle, tearing through shields and armor like tissue paper. Their shields are failing, Data reported. The cube is targeting their warp core. Thor made his decision in microseconds. Transporter room. Lock onto my signature and beam me into space. Now. Thor, that's suicide, Riker began. Do it. The command carried such force that the transporter chief complied on instinct. Thor materialized in hard vacuum between the Hekta and the cube's killing blow. In the airless void, with nothing but his Asgardian physiology and divine power, he became living storm. Lightning erupted from Mjolnir in a column that would have powered a small star, pure energy, raw and undiluted, channeled through Uru metal and Odin's enchantments. The beam struck the cube's shields with force beyond anything in Borg databases. Shields designed to adapt to Federation, Klingon, Romulan, and Cardassian weapons encountered energy that operated on principles their collective consciousness had never assimilated. The shields buckled, failed, and Thor's lightning carved into the cube's hull itself, melting metal, fusing circuits, destroying drones by the thousands. But the Borg learned fast, too fast. The second cube fired at Thor while he was committed to the first attack. Green tractor beams seized him, pulled him toward the cube's surface, toward assimilation chambers where millions of nanoprobes waited to strip away his individuality and add him to their perfection. Thor roared defiance, muscles straining against force that could hold starships. Mjolnir spun in his grip, building momentum, and when he released it, the hammer flew true, crashing through the tractor emitter in explosion of sparks and shattered technology. The hammer returned to his hand as though pulled by invisible cord. Thor used the momentum to redirect himself, lightning propelling him through space toward the third cube. He struck it like meteorite, Mjolnir impacting with concentrated force that cratered the hull. He tore through the exterior, found himself inside the cube's superstructure, corridors filled with drones converging on the intruder. "You will be assimilated," they chanted in unison, reaching for him with assimilation tubules extended. "I will not." Thunder detonated inside the confined space, lightning chain reacting through the cube's internal systems. Drones fell by the hundreds, circuits overloaded, organic components seared. Thor carved his way deeper, destroying power relays, weapon systems, shield generators. Anything that looked important. On the Enterprise bridge, Data tracked Thor's rampage with something approaching awe. "Sir, he is systematically dismantling the cube from inside. The Borg cannot adapt to his energy signature. It operates outside their understanding of physics." "They'll learn eventually," Picard said grimly. "They always do. And there are 46 more cubes out there." Q watched from his floating position with unreadable expression. "Your Asgardian is magnificent, Jean-Luc. Truly. But magnificence alone won't stop the Borg. They're already analyzing his energy patterns. Give them 10 more minutes and they'll have adapted shields that can deflect his lightning. Give them 20 and they'll have assimilation protocols specifically designed for Asgardian physiology. Then we don't give them 20 minutes. Picard turned to Worf. "Target that cube's power core. Fire all weapons. Give Thor an opening to escape." The Enterprise's phasers and torpedoes struck in coordinated barrage, exploiting the damage Thor had caused. The cube's structure began failing, catastrophic power feedback building toward critical mass. "Transporter room, lock onto Thor and beam him out," Picard ordered. "I cannot, sir," came the reply. "Too much interference from the cube's systems and his own energy signature. I cannot get a clean lock." Inside the dying cube, Thor sensed the imminent explosion. Borg drones continued attacking even as their vessel tore itself apart around them. Pure logic, no fear, no survival instinct. Just the collective's directive, assimilate or destroy. He raised Mjolnir and channeled every ounce of power he could muster. Lightning formed sphere around him, shield and weapon combined, and when the cube exploded, Thor rode the shockwave outward, using the blast's force to propel himself back toward the Enterprise. He crashed through the hangar bay's force field in shower of sparks and metal, tumbled across the deck, and came to rest against a shuttlecraft. His armor was scorched, cape shredded, and blood ran from a dozen wounds. but he was alive, grinning, and Mjolnir remained clutched in his hand. "One down," he muttered, pushing himself to his feet. 46 to go." Back on the bridge, Picard watched as the destroyed cube drifted as debris field. But his brief satisfaction evaporated as the remaining cubes adjusted their formation. They weren't attacking randomly anymore. They were coordinating, learning, adapting their strategy to account for Thor's capabilities. "They're forming a perimeter," Data observed, "surrounding us at maximum weapons range. They are waiting." "Waiting for what?" Riker asked. Q materialized directly in front of the view screen, blocking the view of the Borg armada. "Waiting for him." He pointed at the turbolift just as Thor stepped onto the bridge, still bleeding but very much operational. "The collective has analyzed your performance, Thunder God. They've calculated probability matrices, run simulations, determined optimal assimilation procedures. And they've realized something that should terrify you. If they can assimilate you, if they can add your power to their own." He snapped his fingers and holographic images filled the bridge. Borg drones wielding lightning, cubes powered by Asgardian energy, entire planets consumed by mechanical gods. They become unstoppable across every universe, not just this one. Every reality becomes theirs to harvest. Thor's expression hardened. "Then I cannot allow them to assimilate me." "Obviously," Q drawled, "but here's your dilemma. You can't beat them through raw power. Every attack teaches them. Every display of strength gives them data. The more you fight, the more they learn. Eventually, inevitably, they will adapt enough to capture you, and once they have even one Asgardian in their collective..." He let the implication hang. "Then what do you suggest?" Thor demanded. "Surrender? Allow them to simply take me?" "I suggest," Q said with uncharacteristic seriousness, "that you start thinking like something other than a warrior. Your brother, Loki, wasn't it? He was the clever one, the trickster, the one who solved problems through cunning rather than thunder. Perhaps it's time you channeled him instead of your father." The words struck Thor like physical blow. Loki, his brother, trickster god, master of deception and strategy. The one who always saw angles Thor missed, who won battles through manipulation and misdirection rather than strength. Thor had spent 1,500 years being the warrior, the direct approach, the hammer that solved problems through application of overwhelming force. But here, now, against enemy that learned from force, maybe that approach was exactly wrong. "Counselor Troy," Thor said slowly, mind racing through possibilities. "These Borg, they share one consciousness, yes? A collective mind?" "That's correct," Deanna confirmed. "Every drone is connected to every other drone. They think as one entity. Then they have one weakness warriors always overlook." Thor's eyes gleamed with nascent strategy. "They expect direct assault because that is how species fight them. But what if we give them what they want, while hiding what they actually get?" Picard's eyebrows rose. "Explain." "Captain, you have technology these Borg wish to assimilate. Knowledge, tactical data, biological information. What if we offered them me, but on our terms, in a scenario we control?" Thor began pacing, energy building around him not from lightning, but from excitement of tactical planning. "In Asgard, we once faced the Skrulls, shapeshifters who could mimic anyone. We could not fight them directly, so we created situations where their abilities became liabilities. We made them paranoid, uncertain, turned their greatest strength into weakness." "You want to use deception against the Borg?" Worf said with surprise. "A Trojan horse strategy." "Exactly," Thor pointed at Q. "And we have an omnipotent being who claims to find this situation entertaining. Q, Can you create illusions the Borg cannot penetrate? Make them see what we want them to see." Q's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. "Oh, now you're thinking deviously. I like it when mortals surprise me. Yes, I could create illusions even the Borg can't immediately penetrate. But what's in it for me? The satisfaction of watching their perfect collective be deceived by imperfect beings," Thor replied. "You're bored with predictability. We're offering you chaos, specifically the chaos of the Borg failing to assimilate their ultimate prize." For a long moment, Q studied Thor with expression that transcended mortal emotion. Then he threw back his head and laughed, genuine, delighted laughter that made the bridge lights flicker. "Oh, Thor Odinson, you magnificent, devious, wonderfully Loki-esque god. You've given me something I haven't felt in millennia, anticipation. Yes, yes, I will help with your deception. But understand, once we begin this, there's no going back. The Borg will be very unhappy when they discover they've been tricked." "Good," Thor said, hammer crackling with building power. "Let them be unhappy. Let them learn that strength is not the only path to victory, and let them learn it is dangerous to hunt gods, even in universes not their own." The plan crystallized over 42 minutes of desperate creativity, combining Federation technology, Asgardian combat doctrine, Klingon aggressiveness, and Q's reality-warping powers into something no single species could have conceived. In the observation lounge, surrounded by holographic projections of Borg cube formations, Thor outlined a strategy that would have made Loki proud. "The collective wants me," Thor explained, gesturing at the tactical display. "They've calculated that assimilating one Asgardian provides templates for assimilating others, if more breach-dimensional barriers, and grants them powers outside normal physical laws. This makes me their primary objective. Every combat decision they make revolves around capturing me intact. So we use that obsession against them," Picard finished, seeing where Thor was leading. "Make them focus so intently on the prize that they miss the trap." Data's fingers danced across controls, running probability simulations. The difficulty lies in creating a deception robust enough to withstand the collective's analytical capabilities. The moment they detect inconsistency, they will adapt their approach. We would have seconds, perhaps less, before our advantage evaporates. "Which is where I come in," Q announced, materializing sitting cross-legged on the conference table itself. "The Borg's greatest limitation is they can only analyze what they can perceive. I can bend their perception without them realizing they're being bent. Think of it as quantum uncertainty on a macro scale. They'll see what's really happening, but also what I want them to see, and their collective consciousness won't be able to resolve the contradiction fast enough." Kern's image flickered on the view screen, the Hegta holding position, its crew itching for combat. "Asgardian, your plan requires Klingon vessels to appear vulnerable, to bait the cubes into specific formations. You understand this means Klingons will die as part of your deception?" "I do," Thor said gravely. "Which is why I would not ask it if I saw any alternative. But Commander Kern, if we fail here, if the Borg assimilate me and breach into other realities, they will eventually reach the Klingon Empire. And an empire filled with Borg drones wielding lightning, possessing strength beyond any warrior, would fall in days. I offer your people a clean death in glorious battle now, or slow consumption and eternal slavery later." Kern's smile was all teeth. "When you phrase it that way, Thunder God, the choice is obvious. My crew has already volunteered to die with honor. 3 more Klingon vessels are en route. They will arrive in 18 minutes. We will give you the diversion you need. The House of Moog keeps its word. Then we proceed." Picard stood, command presence filling the room. "Geordi, how long to implement the modifications Thor outlined?" LaForge consulted his pad, mentally running through engineering challenges. Captain, what he's asking for is, well, it's insane, but that's kind of become our specialty. I'll need Data's help and access to Thor's hammer to map its energy signature. Figure 30 minutes if nothing explodes. Probably 40 if something does explode and we survive it. You have 25 minutes, Picard said, because in 30, the Borg finish adapting to Thor's energy patterns, and this entire plan becomes impossible. Mr. Worf, coordinate with Kern's fleet. I want every Klingon vessel positioned exactly where they need to be when we execute. Counselor Troy, I need you monitoring the Borg. If they detect our deception even 1 second before we're ready, I need to know immediately. The crew scattered to their tasks, leaving Thor alone with Q in the observation lounge. The entity regarded the Asgardian with expression that might have been respect in someone capable of genuine emotion. You know, Q said conversationally, when I first sensed you entering this universe, I assumed you'd be another brute. Thunder gods are typically not known for nuanced thinking, but this plan of yours, using the Borg's own perfection against them, exploiting their unified consciousness as weakness rather than strength. It's actually quite brilliant. Your brother would approve. Thor's expression darkened at mention of Loki. My brother was many things. Brilliant, yes, but also destructive, selfish, and ultimately, he paused, old pain surfacing. Ultimately, he gave his life to save mine. He died a hero, though he spent most of his existence as a villain. I think he would indeed approve of using deception to save lives. Perhaps that is his legacy to me. Touching, Q drawled, though his tone lacked its usual mockery. But understand something, Thor Odinson. What you're about to attempt will have consequences beyond this battle. The Borg never forget. They never forgive. If you humiliate them here, if you make them look foolish in front of the universe, and make no mistake, every species with sensors will be watching this confrontation. Then you make an enemy that will pursue you across dimensions, across realities, until entropy itself ends. Is saving this one ship, this one crew, worth that eternal enmity? Thor picked up Mjolnir from where it rested against the conference table, feeling the hammer's familiar weight, the subtle hum of Odin's enchantments. You ask if defending innocence is worth making powerful enemies. Q, that question answers itself. In Asgard, we have a saying, a man should be loyal through life to friends, but never to an enemy need he yield loyalty. For the brave, honor demands action, whatever the cost. If the cost of protecting these people is making enemies of the Borg Collective across every universe, then so be it. Let them come. Let them bring their cubes and their drones and their terrible perfection. I will be waiting. Q studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Not his usual sardonic smirk, but something approaching genuine warmth. You know what, Thunder God? I think I'm actually going to help you properly. Not just because it's entertaining, though it very much is, but because the universe, even this one, needs more beings willing to stand against the darkness regardless of cost. He extended his hand. Partners in chaos? Thor clasped his forearm in warrior's grip. Partners in chaos. 23 minutes later, engineering looked like controlled disaster had mated with reckless improvisation. Geordi and Data had connected a network of EPS conduits directly to Thor's hammer, using Mjolnir as focus point for a massive energy transfer. The setup violated approximately 17 safety protocols and made the warp core look positively stable by comparison. Okay, Geordi said, sweat beading his forehead despite the coolness of engineering. In theory, and I really want to emphasize theory here, we can use your hammer's energy signature as a template. The The transporter system, modified with Data's quantum calculations and some principles I'm stealing from our failed experiments with phase cloaks, should be able to create a dispersed field that reads as Thor across multiple coordinates simultaneously. The Borg's sensors will detect you in 17 different locations at once, and their collective mind will have to process which one is real. And while they're processing, Data continued, adjusting isolinear chips in the transporter buffer, their decision-making efficiency decreases by approximately 43.7%, sufficient to create tactical opportunities. Thor nodded understanding. Confusion on the battlefield. We used similar tactics against the fire demons of Muspelheim. Create enough targets that the enemy cannot effectively prioritize threats. But how long can this field be maintained? Best case, 4 minutes, Geordi admitted. Worst case, 30 seconds before the transporter buffer overloads and we lose the main computer. Probably also end up scattering your molecular pattern across 3 star systems, which would be bad. Geordi, Thor said with absolute seriousness, I have been scattered across realms, thrown through dimensions, and once turned temporarily into a frog by my brother during a particularly vindictive sibling argument. If I survive this battle but end up as atoms spread across space, I will consider it a minor inconvenience. You were turned into a frog? Geordi couldn't help himself. Loki had a very strange sense of humor. Now, shall we proceed before the Borg finish their analysis? On the bridge, Picard watched the tactical display with growing tension. The Borg cube formation had tightened, creating inescapable net around the Enterprise and Kern's small fleet. Reinforcements from other Klingon houses had arrived. 4 additional birds of prey, their commanders eager for glorious battle against legendary enemy. 7 Klingon vessels and 1 Federation starship against 46 Borg. Cubes. The mathematics of survival didn't even register as optimistic. They're moving, Worf reported. Cubes assuming assault formation. Estimated time to weapons range, 90 seconds. Geordi, status? Picard's voice remained calm through sheer force of will. We're as ready as we're going to be, Captain. Initiating the dispersal field in 3, 2, 1. Now! The Enterprise's transporter systems screamed as power flooded through channels never designed for such loads. Energy from Thor's hammer pulsed through the network, creating quantum entanglement patterns that made normal space-time relationship suggestions rather than laws. And suddenly, sensors across every ship, Federation, Klingon, and Borg, detected Thor Odinson in 17 locations simultaneously. On every Borg cube, drones froze mid-step. Their collective consciousness encountered paradox. Target designation Thor Odinson occupied 17 distinct coordinates. Quantum analysis indicated all 17 were genuine. Same energy signature, same biomechanical readings, same dimensional origin marker. This should not be possible. This violated known laws of physics. The collective attempted to resolve the contradiction through standard analytical protocols. Processing power that could simulate galactic empires diverted to solving this one problem. For 4 precious seconds, the Borg Armada simply stopped, paralyzed by uncertainty for the first time in millennia. Q appeared on the bridge, grinning like child with new toy. And that's my cue. Time to make things properly interesting. He snapped his fingers and reality bent. The 17 Thor signatures began moving in patterns that defied physics, attacking multiple cubes simultaneously, appearing and disappearing like quantum ghosts, striking with lightning that came from everywhere and nowhere. The Borg's sensors reported everything happening, every attack landing, every cube taking damage. Their logical minds couldn't dismiss the data as false. It registered as completely genuine. But it was all illusion layered on reality. Q had taken Geordi's dispersal field and amplified it beyond any technology, creating Hall of Mirrors in physical space itself. The Borg could detect what was happening, but couldn't determine what was really happening, the quantum uncertainty principle made manifest on macro scale. "Now!" Picard ordered. The Klingon vessels broke formation, diving toward the cubes with reckless courage. But this wasn't suicide charge. It was precision strike. Each bird of prey targeted specific cube subsystems that Thor had identified during his rampage through the first cube's interior. Weapons arrays, shield generators, power distribution nodes. Not random destruction, but surgical elimination of capabilities. And while the Borg tried to process 17 Thor signatures, creating quantum chaos across their sensors, the real Thor materialized in the center of their formation, transported from engineering directly into the heart of the Borg armada, Mjolnir blazing with power that could crack planets. He raised the hammer high and spoke words in Old Norse, language of his ancestors, language that predated this reality's human civilization. By Yggdrasil's roots and Asgard's might, let thunder wake and lightning strike. Mjolnir erupted, not with single bolt, but with storm, lightning arcing from cube to cube in chain reaction, exploiting the minor damage Klingon weapons had inflicted to tear through systems the Borg had left vulnerable while pursuing phantom targets. The storm fed on itself, Thor's power channeling through destroyed technology to reach living systems, overloading drone neural implants, frying collective processing nodes. 7 cubes went dark simultaneously, their consciousness severed from the collective, millions of drones falling into confused individuality for first time in lifetimes. 3 more cubes suffered catastrophic power failures, dead in space. 2 exploded outright as their antimatter containment failed, and through it all, Q's illusions continued. 17 Thor signatures became 34, then 68, making the Borg see attacks that weren't happening while missing the strikes that were. Their tactical efficiency is dropping, Data reported with android excitement. The collective cannot coordinate effectively when unable to determine accurate threat assessment. They are operating at 31% normal efficiency. Press the advantage, Picard ordered. All vessels target the disabled cubes. Kern, your ships are authorized to use everything you have. With honor, Kern's roar preceded his weapons fire. The Klingon vessels unleashed hell, disruptors, photon torpedoes, and in one case a ramming maneuver that tore through a cube's weakened structure like blade through flesh. Thor saw the battle turning, saw the impossible happening, saw the Borg, legendary, unstoppable Borg, being beaten not through superior force, but through confusion, deception, and coordination, through fighting smart instead of fighting hard, through thinking like Loki instead of thinking like Thor. He threw Mjolnir with all his strength. The hammer streaked through space, shattering cube after cube in its path, each impact calculated to create maximum disruption and return to his hand trailing debris and electrical discharge. Loki, Thor whispered to the void, to whatever afterlife his brother inhabited across dimensional barriers. Thank you for teaching me that strength alone is never enough. The Borg adapted. It took them 3 minutes and 47 seconds, longer than usual, testament to Q's reality-bending abilities, but the collective finally resolved the quantum paradox. Processing power from cubes across the Alpha Quadrant redirected to this battle, adding computational strength until the combined consciousness could pierce through illusion to identify the genuine Thor signature amidst the phantoms. They know, Q announced, his grin fading. The jig, as you humans say, is up. They've figured out which one is really you, Thunder God. And they are not happy about being deceived. On sensors, the remaining 36 cubes reformed their strategy. They stopped pursuing phantom signatures and converged with singular purpose on Thor's actual position. Every weapon, every tractor beam, every assimilation protocol locked onto one target. "Thor, get out of there," Picard ordered. "Transporter room, emergency beam out." "Negative, Captain," came the strained reply. "The Borg are flooding that region with tachyon radiation. It's blocking our transporter lock. We cannot retrieve him." Thor found himself surrounded by cubes on all vectors, up, down, forward, aft, every direction blocked by vessels designed to end civilizations. Green tractor beams lanced out, dozens of them, seizing him from multiple angles. The combined force pulled him in contradictory directions, and even Asgardian strength had limits. His armor cracked under the stress. Blood ran from his nose and ears. Mjolnir blazed in his grip, lightning erupting in desperate fury, but 36 cubes had adapted their shields. His energy attacks splashed against defenses that now understood his power's quantum signature, diffusing it harmlessly into space. "You will be assimilated," the collective spoke through every cube simultaneously, voices of millions united in absolute certainty. "Resistance is futile. Your deception was impressive. Your tactical capabilities exceed projections. These qualities will be added to our perfection. You cannot escape. You cannot prevail. You can only accept the inevitable." "I will never surrender," Thor roared, every word costing him as tractor beams constricted further. His ribs cracked, his left arm dislocated. Mjolnir slipped slightly in his grip as consciousness began to fade. On the Enterprise bridge, Worf stood from his tactical console, expression grim. "Captain, I am detecting transport activity. The Borg are beaming Thor directly onto the primary cube. They are preparing assimilation chambers." Deanna Troi gasped, empathic senses overwhelmed by what she felt from Thor. Not fear, not pain, but rage. Absolute, universe-shaking fury at the idea of becoming drone, of losing himself to collective consciousness, of his power being used to enslave rather than protect. "We have to do something." Beverly Crusher moved toward the turbo lift. "I can modify his DNA, make him resistant to nanoprobes." "There's no time," Data said, quietly. "At current transport rate, Thor will materialize in assimilation chamber in 4.1 seconds. Nanoprobe injection occurs within microseconds of arrival. By the time any rescue reaches him, he will have been assimilated." Picard's hands gripped his command chair so tightly his knuckles went white. Helplessness, the feeling he hated most, threatened to overwhelm command discipline. He'd seen people assimilated, had been assimilated himself, knew exactly what horror awaited Thor in those chambers, and could do nothing. "Q," Picard turned to the entity. "You can stop this. You're omnipotent. Just snap your fingers and save him." Q's expression carried something that might have been regret in being capable of such emotions. "Oh, Jean-Luc, if I do that, if I simply wave my hand and undo what's happening, the Q continuum will notice. They're already annoyed I'm interfering at all. But directly altering a species' natural development, even the Borg's natural development, crosses lines even I cannot casually disregard." He met Picard's desperate gaze. "However, there are rules, and then there are loopholes. I cannot save Thor, but I can give him what he needs to save himself, if he's strong enough." Inside the Borg cube, Thor materialized in a simulation chamber, cylindrical room lined with surgical machinery designed to strip away individuality and rebuild consciousness as extension of collective. Dozens of drones surrounded him, reaching with assimilation tubules, faces blank and emotionless. "You will adapt to service us," they chanted. "Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. You will become one with the collective. Resistance is..." Thor's eyes snapped open, not blue anymore, but blazing white, lightning pouring from every cell. "Futile," Let me tell you about futility machines. I am Thor, son of Odin, inheritor of the Odin Force, wielder of weapons forged in dying stars. I have battled gods and monsters. I have stood at Ragnarok's edge and laughed at fate. You want to assimilate me? The lightning exploded outward in omnidirectional pulse that vaporized every drone in the chamber. But Thor didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Something was happening. Power he'd never fully accessed, never truly needed, rising from depths of his Asgardian heritage. The Odin Force, his father's power, dormant until moments of absolute necessity. He became Storm incarnate. Lightning didn't just flow from him anymore. It was him. Thor's physical form dissolved into living electricity. Consciousness expanded across energy patterns that could exist in multiple locations simultaneously. He poured through the cube's systems like divine wrath, consciousness dividing and reforming, striking from everywhere and nowhere. Drones fell by thousands, computer cores melted. The collective consciousness, so used to assimilating others into itself, suddenly found itself being invaded. Thor's consciousness, empowered by the Odin Force and operating outside normal physical laws, flooded into the collective's neural network. And for the first time in Borg history, they felt something unprecedented: fear. You wanted to know my thoughts? Thor's voice echoed through every drone's neural implant, every computer core, every processor across the entire cube. You wanted to add my distinctiveness to your perfection. Then experience what I have experienced. Feel what Asgardians feel. He poured memories into the collective, 1,500 years of battle, love, loss, triumph, and failure. Showed them what individuality meant. Showed them the beauty of imperfection, the strength in diversity, the power in choosing your own path. He made the Borg remember what they had lost when they surrendered to the collective. Across the cube, drones stopped mid-movement. Some fell to their knees, hands clutching heads as neural implants struggled to process emotions they hadn't felt in decades or centuries. Others stood paralyzed, consciousness torn between collective directive and sudden shocking awareness of self. The cube's systems failed systematically as Thor's electrical form shorted out everything connected to the collective network. And when he finally reformed his physical body, standing at the cube's core, armor blazing with Odin Force energy, Mjolnir crackling with power beyond anything he'd wielded before, the cube was dead around him. Not destroyed, not exploded, just empty. A vessel without consciousness, drones disconnected, systems offline. Thor raised Mjolnir and called down lightning from his own power, channeling it through the cube's dying systems to the other cubes still active. The energy jumped from vessel to vessel, carrying not destruction but disruption, overloading collective neural networks, severing connections between drones and central consciousness. On 36 cubes, millions of drones suddenly found themselves alone. Individuals. Terrified, confused, traumatized individuals who hadn't experienced independent thought in lifetimes. The Borg Armada simply stopped. Cubes drifted, powerless, consciousness fragmented beyond immediate repair. They would recover eventually. The collective was too vast, too distributed to permanently damage. But here, now, they were defeated. Not destroyed, but made to understand something worse than death. The possibility that their perfection was, in fact, profoundly imperfect. Thor transported himself back to the Enterprise using the Bifrost power he'd never fully accessed until this moment, learning in crisis what he hadn't known in 1,500 years of peace. He materialized on the bridge, armor cracked, body bleeding, but victorious. Then he collapsed, consciousness finally surrendering to exhaustion and injuries that would have killed any other being 3 times over. Medical team to the bridge. Beverly was already moving, medical tricorder in hand. Get him to sickbay now. As they rushed Thor away, On emergency stretcher, Q materialized beside Picard with expression of genuine satisfaction. Well, that was educational. For him, for the Borg, and frankly, for me. I haven't seen someone tap into power they didn't know they possessed through sheer desperate need well, since the last time I prodded humanity into evolution. He paused, though I should mention what Thor just did. Accessing the Odin Force without training, channeling it through pure instinct. That's either going to revolutionize his capabilities or kill him within the next few hours. Could go either way. Mortality is so exciting. Picard wanted to rage at the entity, to demand he help, to force omnipotent intervention. But he knew Q well enough by now to understand this was Thor's test. His crucible, the moment that defined whether he could survive in this universe or become another casualty of dimensional displacement. All they could do was wait and see if the God of Thunder proved worthy of his own power. Sickbay had never held a patient quite like this. Thor lay on the biobed, vital signs fluctuating wildly between readings that suggested near death and readings that exceeded the medical database's capacity to measure. His body crackled with residual Odin Force energy, golden lightning that arced across his skin in patterns that seemed almost alive, almost conscious. Every few seconds, the biobed's force field would overload and reset, unable to contain power that operated on principles Federation science couldn't classify. His cellular structure is in flux, Beverly reported, tricorder readings scrolling past faster than she could process. It's like his DNA is rewriting itself in real time. Asgardian physiology was already beyond anything I've encountered. But this, she gestured helplessly at the biobed's display. This is evolution compressed into minutes instead of millennia. His body is adapting to contain power it was never designed to hold. Data stood at a secondary console, running continuous analyses. The energy signature matches what our sensors detected during his assault on the Borg cubes, but at exponentially higher concentration. Doctor, I believe we are witnessing biological transformation, Thor's Asgardian heritage, expressing capabilities that remained dormant until survival necessity triggered their activation. Translation: he's becoming something more than he was, Beverly said quietly. The question is whether his body can survive the process. On the biobed, Thor's eyes snapped open, not blue, not white with lightning, but shimmering gold. The Odin Force pulsed through him like tidal wave, and for a moment he wasn't fully present. His consciousness stretched across dimensions, touching briefly on his home reality. He could feel Asgard, distant as dreams, separated by barriers that suddenly seemed less absolute than before. "Father," he whispered to the void between universes, "I understand now. This power, it was always mine, wasn't it? Waiting until I needed it desperately enough to break through my own limitations." The Odin Force didn't answer with words. It answered with knowledge flooding his consciousness, understanding of dimensional physics that Geordi would have killed to possess, awareness of universal constants that data couldn't calculate, and most importantly, the terrible truth about his situation. The barriers between universes were damaged. His arrival had weakened them. The Borg's assault had stressed them further. And right now, at this moment, something far worse than the Borg was noticing the cracks in reality's foundation. Thor sat up abruptly, ignoring Beverly's protests. "Captain Picard, I must speak with him immediately. We have very little time." "You need to rest." Beverly moved to restrain him, but golden energy flickered around Thor, and she found herself gently pushed back by force she couldn't overcome. "Thor, your body is adapting," he finished, "changing, becoming what it needs to." Dr. Crusher, I appreciate your concern, but I am no longer in danger from these transformations. I am in danger from what's coming next." He stood, armor reforming around him, not the battle-damaged version from before, but new configuration that incorporated both Asgardian design and something else, something that resonated with this universe's quantum signature. On the bridge, Picard had been coordinating with the Klingon fleet and managing diplomatic fallout from the Borg engagement when Thor emerged from the turbolift. The Asgardian looked different, taller somehow, despite being the same height. His presence carried weight that made reality bend slightly around him, as though space itself acknowledged his significance. "Captain," Thor said without preamble, "we won the battle but not the war. The Borg were merely the first threat drawn by weakened dimensional barriers. I can sense others now, probing the cracks, searching for ways through. Some are from my reality, enemies who would pursue me across any distance. Others are from realities neither of us know. All of them are dangerous." Q materialized beside the command chair, expression unusually serious. "He's right, Jean-Luc. The fight with the Borg destabilized things further. I've been monitoring dimensional integrity, professional curiosity, you understand, and it's deteriorating faster than I expected. Give it 6 hours, maybe 8, and you'll have breaches opening across this entire sector. Some will release things that make the Borg look friendly." "Can you seal the barriers?" Picard demanded. "Restore dimensional integrity?" "Could I? Yes, will I? No." Q raised a hand, forestalling Picard's inevitable protest. "Before you get all righteous, understand. If I seal the barriers completely, Thor can never return home. Ever. He'll be trapped in this universe permanently. But if I don't seal them, your universe gets invaded by multiversal horrors. Rather a dilemma, wouldn't you say?" Thor moved to the view screen, staring at the stars, so similar to his own galaxy, yet fundamentally different in ways only he could perceive. "There is a third option. I can seal the breaches myself." Every head on the bridge turned toward him. "The Odin Force," Thor continued, raising his hand and watching golden energy dance across his fingers, "is power my father wielded to protect the 9 realms. It operates across dimensional boundaries because Asgard itself exists in quantum superposition, partially in your physical universe, partially in higher dimensions. Now that I've accessed this power, I can use it to reinforce the barriers from this side while simultaneously creating stabilized pathway back to my own reality. You're talking about dimensional engineering on a scale that would require computational power exceeding the Federation's entire scientific infrastructure," Data objected gently. "One being, even one as powerful as you have become, attempting such feat risks catastrophic failure." "You're right," Thor acknowledged. "One being attempting this alone would fail, but I won't be alone." He turned to Picard. "Captain, your ship's warp core generates power by containing antimatter reactions within magnetic fields. Data mentioned your sensors detected quantum fluctuations in the spatial anomalies that brought me here. And Q..." He faced the entity directly. "You have power to manipulate reality at fundamental level. If we combine these elements, Federation technology, Asgardian power, and omnipotent intervention, we might accomplish what none could achieve separately." Picard processed the proposal with Captain's tactical mind. "You're suggesting we use the Enterprise as focusing array for your dimensional repairs. More than that. I'm suggesting we use your ship's power, your crew's knowledge, and your presence in this universe as anchor point. The Enterprise becomes bridge between science and magic, between what you know and what I know. Together, we seal the breaches, stabilize reality, and ensure both our universes remain safe." "And you get to go home," Riker said, understanding dawning. "This isn't just about saving our universe, it's about saving yours, too." Thor's expression softened with longing he'd kept carefully hidden. "I have been separated from my people, my realm, my purpose for weeks that have felt like centuries. Yes, Commander Riker, I desperately wish to go home. But more than that, I've seen what weakened barriers allow. I've felt the darkness pressing against reality's edges. If we don't act, if we don't seal these breaches properly, eventually something will come through that makes the Borg look like minor inconvenience. Something that will destroy not just this universe or mine, but all universes. The bridge fell silent, each officer processing the implications. Finally, Picard stood. Mr. LaForge, report to the bridge. Data. Begin calculations for using the warp core as dimensional stabilization matrix. Mr. Worf, coordinate with the Klingon fleet. I want them providing defensive perimeter in case anything else comes through before we finish. Counselor Troy, I need you monitoring Thor's mental state throughout this process. If his consciousness starts fragmenting across dimensions, he left the implication hanging. And me? Q asked with theatrical innocence. What role does the omnipotent entity play in this grand scheme? Thor approached him, meeting his gaze with respect earned through shared battle. Q, you said the Continuum would object to direct intervention, but this isn't intervention in one species' development. This is preventing multiversal collapse. Surely, even the Q recognized the difference between helping humanity evolve and preventing existence itself from unraveling. Q's smile turned genuine. Oh, you clever thunder god, framing it as universal preservation rather than personal assistance. Fine, I'll help, but understand, this will cost me. The Continuum will ask questions. I'll have to justify my actions before beings who make me look positively mundane. They're insufferably judgmental. He straightened his archaic suit. However, preventing reality from imploding does seem like worthwhile investment of my time. When do we begin? Immediately, Thor said. I can feel more things pressing against the barriers. We have perhaps 4 hours before something catastrophic breaks through. Geordi LaForge arrived on the bridge, took one look at the assembled group, and sighed. Why do I get the feeling this is going to involve doing something impossible with the warp core that violates every engineering principle I know? Because it will, Thor confirmed. But Chief Engineer LaForge, you've already accomplished impossible things today. The dispersal field you created gave us the opening that won the battle. Now I'm asking you to accomplish something even more remarkable. Help me save 2 universes. Geordi looked at Picard, who nodded confirmation. All right then, let's go rewrite the laws of physics. Again. Just another Tuesday on the Enterprise. The preparation took 3 hours and 47 minutes, every second precious as sensors detected increasing pressure on dimensional barriers. They worked with desperate focus, Geordi and Data reconfiguring the warp core's magnetic containment to channel energy through patterns Thor specified. Beverly preparing medical protocols for dimensional transition side effects. Worf coordinating with Kern's fleet and 3 additional Klingon vessels that had arrived, drawn by tales of the battle against the Borg. Thor spent the time in meditation, learning to fully control the Odin force rather than simply channel it through instinct. The power was vast, potentially limitless, but required discipline to wield effectively. One miscalculation, one moment of lost control, and he could tear reality apart instead of repairing it. Q watched the preparations with uncharacteristic patience, occasionally offering observations that Data frantically incorporated into his calculations. Despite his usual flippancy, the entity clearly took this threat seriously. Multiversal collapse wasn't just dangerous, it was offensive to beings like the Q, who had invested eons in maintaining cosmic order. Finally, they were ready. The Enterprise moved to coordinates Data calculated as optimal, a point in space where dimensional barriers were thinnest, where the mathematical probability of successful intervention peaked at 37.4%. Not encouraging odds, but better than any alternative. Thor stood in engineering, Mjolnir in one hand, the other pressed against the warp core's shielding. Golden Odin Force energy wrapped around him like living flame, and his consciousness expanded to perceive dimensions beyond normal physical space. He could see the barriers, vast structures in higher dimensions, cracking under pressure from things that should never touch this reality. "Beginning power transfer," Geordi announced, routing warp core output through the modified EPS grid to Thor's position. Energy levels rising, 50%, 75. "Captain, we're approaching theoretical maximums. Any higher and we risk..." "Risk is acceptable," Picard's voice came over comms. "Mr. LaForge, give him everything we have." The Enterprise's lights dimmed as power diverted. Every non-essential system shut down. Life support dropped to minimum. All of it, all the ship's considerable energy output, flowed into Thor. He blazed like newborn star, power multiplying through combination of technologies and principles that should never interact. And when Q added his omnipotent contribution, reality warping power that made even the Odin Force look limited, Thor's consciousness exploded outward across dimensional boundaries. He perceived everything, every universe, every timeline, every possible configuration of existence spreading out like infinite web. Saw his own reality, Asgard shining golden in the void, his friends searching desperately for any sign of him. Saw the Star Trek universe in all its complexity, millions of species pursuing their destinies across galaxies. Saw the barriers between them, cracked and leaking, with horrors pressing through from outside, things with too many angles, beings of pure entropy, entities that existed only to unmake. "No," Thor said, his voice echoing across dimensions. "You do not enter here. These universes are protected." He raised Mjolnir, channeling combined power of Asgard, the Enterprise, and Q's reality manipulation. Lightning erupted. Not electrical discharge, but pure creative force, energy that existed before physics codified into laws. It poured into the cracks, filled the gaps, reinforced the barriers with power that declared, "This far and no further." The horrors recoiled, the barriers stabilized, and in the space between universes, Thor wove something new. A controlled pathway, narrow and precise, leading from this reality back to his own. An escape route, a way home. But using it meant leaving these people forever, meant abandoning the Federation to face future threats without him, meant never knowing what became of Picard, Data, Geordi, Worf, and all the others who had risked everything to help him. For a long moment, subjective time distorted by dimensional awareness, Thor hesitated. Then Picard's voice cut through his consciousness, transmitted through the power link. "Thor, go home. Your people need you. Your realm needs you. You've done enough for us. More than enough. Now save your own universe." Thor smiled, though no one could see it in his current state. "Thank you, Captain, for everything. May your voyages be legendary, and may the Federation endure for all time. I will not forget you. When Asgardians tell tales of far realms and strange allies, your names will be sung with honor." He released his hold on this reality and stepped into the pathway, power, collapsing behind him, sealing the barriers permanently as he transitioned. The last thing he saw of the Star Trek universe was the Enterprise, damaged but triumphant, surrounded by Klingon vessels, crew celebrating victory against impossible odds. Then dimensional walls closed, and Thor fell through the void between worlds, racing toward home. Thor materialized above Asgard's rainbow bridge with thunderclap that shook the Golden Realm's foundations. He fell from impossible height, wind screaming past, and for a moment simply enjoyed the sensation of being home. Below, Heimdall's observatory gleamed in Asgard's eternal twilight. Beyond, the city sprawled in architectural magnificence, spires touching clouds, gardens defying gravity, palaces that had stood for millennia. He landed on the bridge and crouched that cracked Bifrost crystal beneath his feet, Mjolnir striking with impact that sent shockwaves rippling across the rainbow pathway. When he straightened, he was different than the prince who had vanished weeks ago. The Odin force still flickered around him, barely contained, and his eyes held knowledge of other universes, other possibilities. Heimdall stood at his post, all-seeing, eyes wide with something approaching shock. Thor Odinson, I lost sight of you. In 15,000 years of watching, I have never lost sight of anything in the Nine Realms. Where did you go? Farther than even your sight reaches, old friend. Thor embraced the Guardian with warrior's affection. I was cast through dimensional barriers into a universe unlike our own, a place of science without magic, of starships instead of Bifrost, of species who explore cosmos through technology rather than divine power. He pulled back, grin spreading. And it was glorious. Your father will wish to hear this tale, Heimdall said, though his expression suggested he'd already seen fragments of truth through means beyond normal sight. The All-Father has been concerned. When the Bifrost malfunctioned and you vanished, he suspected the worst. Your brother Loki has been insufferable, alternating between grief and claiming you orchestrated some elaborate trick. Loki lives? Thor's heart leaped. In the Star Trek universe, he'd spoken of his brother's death, but that had been possibility, fear given voice. Hearing confirmation of life sent relief flooding through him. Very much so, and very much a pain in Thor. The shout came from the city. Moments later, Loki appeared via magical transport, dark hair disheveled, expression mixing fury and relief in equal measure. You inconsiderate, reckless, absolutely impossible oaf. Do you have any idea what chaos you caused? Father has had half the realms searching for you. I've been running diplomatic interference with the other realms. The Warriors 3 have been preparing a rescue mission to Helheim because we thought you died. Thor caught his brother in an embrace that lifted him off the ground. I missed you too, brother. Loki struggled briefly, then relaxed into the hug with uncharacteristic vulnerability. Where were you? His voice dropped to something approaching genuine concern. Truly, Thor, Heimdall couldn't see you. The Bifrost couldn't reach you. I know. Thor set him down. Come, we'll tell Father together. But Loki, he met his brother's eyes seriously. I learned something important while I was gone. I learned that your way, the clever way, the way of strategy and deception, has value equal to the warrior's path. You were right all those times you said I relied too much on Mjolnir and not enough on thought. In that other universe, I survived by thinking like you. Loki's expression flickered through several emotions before settling on suspicious pleasure. The great Thor Odinson admitting I was right about something. Did you suffer head trauma during your adventure? Probably several, Thor admitted cheerfully. Now come. Father awaits, and I have a tale that will astound even the All-Father's wisdom. The throne room of Asgard had witnessed countless moments of significance across millennia, but even its ancient stones seemed to lean forward as Thor recounted his journey. Odin sat upon his throne, one eye gleaming with interest. Gungnir held loosely as he listened to his son describe dimensional barriers, starships, the Borg Collective, and beings called the Q who wielded power rivaling the Asgardians themselves. Lady Sif and the Warriors 3, Volstagg, Fandral, and Hogun, stood at attention, eyes wide. Other Asgardian nobles whispered among themselves, trying to comprehend universe so similar yet fundamentally different from their own. And this Captain Picard, Odin said when Thor finished, He commanded his vessel with honor, despite lacking our strength or longevity. With honor that would earn respect in any of the 9 realms, Thor confirmed. Father, they have built civilization on principles we sometimes overlook. Equality among species, exploration over conquest, diplomacy before violence. They are not weak, but they choose restraint. And that restraint, paradoxically, has made them stronger than empires that rule through fear alone. Odin stood, descending from the throne with measured steps. He approached Thor, studying his son with vision that transcended normal sight. You have changed, my son. The Odin force has awakened within you, far earlier than I anticipated. Typically, this power manifests only when the previous wielder passes on. That it activated while I still live suggests... He paused, considering implications. Suggests the universe itself recognized necessity. You needed this power to survive, so it emerged. Can he control it? Loki asked, though his tone suggested more curiosity than concern. The Odin force is notoriously difficult to wield. Even Father required centuries to master it. I'm learning, Thor said honestly. In that other universe, I had no choice but to learn quickly or be consumed. The experience was educational. He flexed his hand, golden energy flickering. Father, I sealed the dimensional barriers from the other side. No one else should accidentally cross between our realities. But the experience taught me something important about the cosmos. We are not alone. Not just the 9 realms, but infinite realms. Infinite possibilities. Some friendly, some hostile, all connected through structures we barely understand. Odin's expression grew distant, as though perceiving truths across vast spans. I have long suspected the 9 realms were merely fragment of larger cosmology. Your journey confirms this. Thor. He placed his hand on his son's shoulder. You have done well. More than well. You survived impossible circumstances, protected innocence in foreign universe, and returned home bearing knowledge and power that will serve Asgard for generations. I am proud of you, my son. The words hit harder than any Borg weapon. Thor felt emotion threatening to overwhelm Warrior's composure. His father's approval, earned through trial by fire in universe that didn't know him, didn't fear him, didn't care about his divine heritage. He'd survived on merit alone, adapting to circumstances rather than overwhelming them with power. Thank you, Father, he managed. The throne room erupted in celebration, warriors cheering, nobles toasting, servants bringing mead and food for feast honoring Thor's return. The warriors 3 clapped him on the back, demanding every detail of his battles. Sif smiled with genuine relief, admitting she'd feared him lost forever. But as celebration swirled around him, Thor found himself standing at the throne room's balcony, looking out across Asgard toward stars beyond. Somewhere out there, across dimensional barriers now properly sealed, the Enterprise continued its mission. Picard pursued diplomatic solutions to impossible problems. Data explored the nature of consciousness. Geordi worked engineering miracles. Worf embodied Klingon honor. And Q, well, Q probably was tormenting some other species with his tests. You wish you could return, Loki said quietly, joining him at the balcony. I can see it in your expression. You found something there. Purpose, maybe, or perhaps just appreciation for how other civilizations approach existence. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who knows you well. Loki leaned against the railing. Tell me truly, brother, what was the most remarkable thing about this other universe? Thor considered the question carefully. They reach for stars without divine power. They build civilizations without magic. They face horrors like the Borg, enemies that would break most realms, and they survive through cooperation, intelligence, and refusal to surrender their principles, even when pragmatism suggests otherwise. They are mortal, finite, limited by physics we transcend effortlessly. And yet, he smiled, they are magnificent, perhaps more magnificent than we are, because everything they achieve comes through effort rather than inherent power. Loki absorbed this, expression thoughtful. You've learned humility, genuine humility, not the performative kind Father tries to teach through exile and punishment. This other universe humbled you by showing you don't need to be strongest or most powerful to matter. You just need to be present, to act with honor, to help when help is needed. He glanced at his brother with something approaching respect. Perhaps you're finally becoming the king Asgard needs. King, Thor laughed. Father has centuries of rule left in him. Perhaps, but when the time comes, and it will come eventually, even for the All-Father, you'll be ready. Because now you understand, kingship isn't about power, it's about service, sacrifice, and sometimes making choices that hurt personally but serve the greater good. Loki paused. You sealed the barriers knowing you'd never see those people again. That's the kind of choice kings make. Thor had no response to that. Instead, he raised his hand, summoning Mjolnir from where it rested inside the throne room. The hammer flew to his grip with comfortable familiarity, but now he perceived it differently. Not just weapon, but tool. Not just symbol of power, but reminder of responsibility. I wonder, he mused, if Picard stands on his bridge right now, looking at stars, wondering what became of me. Probably, Loki agreed, and probably toasting your memory with whatever earth beverage he prefers. You made an impression, Thor, on an entire universe that had never heard of Asgard. That's worth celebrating. The feast continued deep into Asgard's night, though night in the Golden Realm was more concept than reality, with stars always visible through atmospheric magic. Thor drank and laughed and told stories, but part of his consciousness remained aware of the Odin force pulsing within him. Power he'd accessed desperately, power he'd need to master fully if he wanted to protect not just Asgard, but all 9 realms. And perhaps, someday, if dimensional barriers could be safely navigated with proper preparation and control, he might find a way to visit that other universe again. Not to stay. His duty was here, his people needed him here. But to see how Picard's crew continued their mission, to check if Kern had told stories of their battle, to thank them properly for lessons they'd taught, without realizing they were teaching. For now, though, he was home. And home, Thor discovered, felt sweeter for having been away, for having seen how others lived, how others fought, how others found meaning in cosmos, vast beyond comprehension. He raised his mead cup toward the stars, toward dimensional barriers sealed but not forgotten. To Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise, to his crew of explorers and scientists and warriors, to the Federation and Klingon Empire and all the species who choose to reach for stars despite lacking our gifts. May your voyages be legendary. May your discoveries be profound. May your civilization endure until entropy itself ends. Odd toast, Volstagg observed, but heartfelt. Who is this Picard? Thor smiled. A friend from far away, very far away, and one of the finest leaders I've ever had privilege to serve alongside, even briefly. Loki raised his own cup. To friends across impossible distances, and to my brother who finally learned there are problems even thunder cannot solve, and that this is not weakness but wisdom. They drank, and the celebration continued, and Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard, wielder of Mjolnir, keeper of the Odin Force, and now traveler between universes, looked toward the future with eyes that had seen beyond the 9 realms and found the cosmos more wondrous than even Asgard's legends suggested. The dimensional barriers held firm, stronger than before Thor's intervention. In the Star Trek universe, the Enterprise continued its mission of exploration, carrying with it the legend of the God of Thunder, who had appeared briefly to save them from the Borg before vanishing as mysteriously as he'd arrived. Captain Picard's logs recorded the encounter in detail, though Starfleet classified most of the report. Multiversal contact was too sensitive for general dissemination. The Klingon Empire told different stories. In their halls, warriors sang of Thor Odinson, the outsider who earned their respect through combat and honor. Commander Kern became something of a legend himself, the warrior who had faced a god and lived to tell the tale. The battle against the Borg, 47 cubes defeated through strategy, deception, and raw courage, became case study at Starfleet Academy and inspiration in Klingon warrior lodges. Q returned to the Continuum to face questions about his interference, but did so with characteristic insouciance. He'd prevented multiversal collapse. He'd been entertained magnificently. And most importantly, he'd helped ensure that the fascinating human experiment aboard the Enterprise could continue undisturbed. The Continuum, after much debate, decided his actions had been acceptable. Barely. In Asgard, Thor's journey became legend of different kind. The tale of the prince who traveled beyond the 9 realms, who encountered civilizations without magic, who learned that strength took many forms, spread through the Golden Realm and beyond. It reminded Asgardians that their power came with responsibility, not just to their own realm, but to the cosmic balance itself. Thor mastered the Odin Force slowly, with discipline learned from watching Picard command through wisdom rather than force. He became better leader, more thoughtful warrior, more capable prince. When challenges arose, and they always did, he found himself asking, what would Picard do before reaching for Mjolnir? Sometimes the answer was still, hit it with hammer. But often, increasingly, the answer involved strategy, diplomacy, and understanding that true strength meant knowing when not to fight. Across dimensional barriers that would never again weaken accidentally, 2 universes pursued their destinies. One filled with gods and magic and realms beyond mortal comprehension. Another filled with explorers and scientists pushing boundaries through determination and ingenuity. Different approaches to existence, different philosophies, different rules, but both seeking the same things: understanding, growth, protection for the innocent, and meaning in cosmos vast beyond any being's complete comprehension. And on quiet nights when Asgard's stars shone particularly bright, Thor would sometimes stand on the Rainbow Bridge and reach out with the Odin Force, not to breach the barriers, never that, but to sense the other universe beyond, to feel the Enterprise's warp, signature faint but persistent, to know his friends continued their mission among the stars. Safe travels, Captain Picard, he would whisper to the void. May the Federation thrive. May your crew find wonders beyond imagining, and may you never face threat you cannot overcome. You taught a god humility. That is a gift beyond price, and one I will carry always. The cosmos, vast and strange and infinite in its possibilities, spun on. 2 universes, now separate but forever changed by brief moment of contact. And in both realms, legends were born that would endure as long as beings told stories of the god who learned wisdom in a galaxy far from home, and of the starship crew who helped him discover that thunder alone was never enough. May the Force be with you. More stories await.